those of you who have not kept track, this is what we're talking about. Leaders of ASEAN countries are in India, all the 10 ASEAN countries, to celebrate the 69th Republic Day of India. That's tomorrow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with all the 10 heads of state of these ASEAN nations. Which are these countries? Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, the Philippines, Brunei and Singapore. They also participated in the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit today. In the afternoon, all leaders attended a luncheon at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. They were welcomed by India's President Ramnath Kovind and Vice President Venkaiah Naidu. This visit by ASEAN leaders marks 25 years of India's ties with the Southeast Asian bloc. Sources say that counter-terrorism, security, trade and connectivity were the key focus of talks today. India has also signed several deals, or memorandums of understanding as they're called in diplomacies, with the ASEAN countries in an attempt to deepen ties. Now, you would know that traditionally India has hosted one head of state as a guest of honor for the 26th January parade. Why 10 this time? This is part of the government's Act East policy. That's a step forward from the Look East policy that New Delhi has maintained so far. Now they are acting, and it's about time, we say. Why is this significant? Because it comes at a time when China is pushing its expansionist agenda, browbeating smaller neighbors, hogging territory and stepping up economic and military assertiveness. So what's in it for India? This is an opportunity for India to project itself as a powerful ally of ASEAN countries. India is already working on key projects to enhance trade and connectivity with this bloc. This event will cement its position as a credible and strong alternative to China.
Though we are celebrating 25 years of our partnership, our shared voyage goes back thousands of years. It is a privilege for India to host all the ASEAN leaders for the second time in 5 years. Tomorrow, you will be our honored guests at our Republic Day celebrations. The presence of my brothers and sisters from all our ASEAN partners at this joyous celebration is unprecedented. Your collective presence here has also touched the hearts of my 1.25 billion fellow Indians. In highlights the importance of our strategic partnership, placing ASEAN at the center of India's Act East policy.
A former Indian Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, famously remarked that you can change friends, but you cannot change neighbors. That might be true for India and the ASEAN. WION's Ramesh Ramachandran finds out how and why.
They say geography is history. Or is it? One look at the map of Asia, more specifically the Indo-Pacific region, would indicate otherwise. In the wider Indo-Pacific region, straddling South, Southeast and East Asia, geography is ever present. It cannot be wished away, just as India's rise cannot be wished away either. India and 5 of 10 ASEAN countries have outstanding disputes with China. Land border in the case of China and India, and maritime boundaries between China on the one hand and Brunei, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia and Indonesia on the other hand. But can China be glue enough for India and ASEAN to make common cause? Now that is still moot, but it might not remain so for long, especially if China continues to offend neighbors like it has in the South China Sea, or with India at Doklam and some other locations along the line of actual control. Besides China, another country that will be watching India's eastward lurch is Pakistan. With South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation or SAARC in limbo, India is looking at BIMSTEC, or the Bay of Bengal Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, with new eyes. BIMSTEC comprises 5 SAARC members: India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal and Sri Lanka, and 2 ASEAN members, Myanmar and Thailand. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION.
So as India courts the ASEAN and the United States becomes more invested in the Indo-Pacific, China will be tempted to read the tea leaves to understand what the future holds, not just for itself, but for the neighborhood and the countries with which it shares land and maritime boundaries. Ramesh Ramachandran with another report.
Last week, US Defense Secretary General James Mattis released an unclassified summary of a classified document called the National Defense Strategy. It was the first such document in 10 years. In it, Mattis spelled out the primary focus of US national security strategy.
So we will continue to prosecute the campaign against terrorists that we're engaged in today, but great power competition, not terrorism, is now the primary focus of US national security.
Clearly, the Pentagon has China and Russia in its crosshairs. Then there is North Korea and Iran. And Mattis wants to build on America's traditional alliances while scouting for new partners.
The defense strategy's three primary lines of effort will restore our comparative military advantage. We are going to build a more lethal force. We will strengthen our traditional alliances and building new partnerships with other nations, and at the same time we will reform our department's business practices for performance and affordability.
The defense strategy authored by Mattis flows from US President Donald Trump's national security strategy. Unveiled last month, Trump's security strategy spelled out American interests in the Indo-Pacific region. About India, Trump said, "We will deepen our strategic partnership with India and support its leadership role in Indian Ocean security and throughout the broader region. We will help South Asian nations maintain their sovereignty as China increases its influence in the region. We welcome India's emergence as a leading global power and stronger strategic and defense partner. We will seek to increase quadrilateral cooperation with Japan, Australia, and India." Trump also spoke about ASEAN. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations remains a centerpiece of the Indo-Pacific's regional architecture and platforms for promoting an order based on freedom. China will be the proverbial elephant in the room as Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds talks with all 10 ASEAN leaders in New Delhi. The interplay of India, ASEAN, the United States and China will determine the future of the Indo-Pacific. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION.
So from US President Barack Obama to French President François Hollande, India has hosted the world's most powerful leaders on Republic Day every year. This year is extra special. You already know why. Let's introduce you to the 10 guests of honor.
गणतंत्र दिवस समारोह के लिए सभी 10 आसियान नेता मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में भारत आएंगे। गणतंत्र दिवस पर इस बार एक नहीं बल्कि 10 मुख्य अतिथि होंगे। ऐसा भारत के इतिहास में पहले कभी नहीं हुआ है।
With that announcement, Prime Minister Narendra Modi underscored India's deepening ties with the ASEAN bloc, and that India's Republic Day will be a celebration of 25 years of India's association with ASEAN. In 1950, Indonesia's President Sukarno was the first chief guest at India's Republic Day. 57 years later, an Indonesian leader returns with President Joko Widodo gracing the Rajpath. Singapore's third Prime Minister, Lee Loong, is the son of country's legendary founding father, the late Lee Kuan Yew. Prime Minister Modi has been a staunch admirer of Lee Kuan, who made modern Singapore what it's today. Joining them will be the Prime Minister of Vietnam and member of the Communist Party's Politburo. Under him, Vietnam has emerged as one of the main pillars of India's Act East policy. The government believes Vietnam can act as a pressure point against China. Malaysia's Prime Minister Najib Razak was one of the first world leaders to laud Prime Minister Modi's demonetization move aimed at curbing black money. General Prayut Chan-o-cha, a retired Royal Thai Army officer and current Prime Minister of Thailand, heads their military junta. Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi is now State Councillor of Myanmar and serves as the country's de facto leader. She has a deep connection with India, having studied in Delhi. It's the first visit to India for Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte. His style of governance has been controversial, beginning with his campaign against drug traffickers. The Sultan of Brunei was the richest man in the world till Bill Gates came along. His wealth comes primarily from Brunei's rich oil and gas reserves. The Cambodian Prime Minister is the world's longest-serving head of state, having been in power since 1985. Like Cambodia, Laos has been known to have acted under the influence of China on ASEAN-related issues. Prime Minister Thong Loon is in Delhi to strengthen the bilateral relations that have been growing over the past years. The presence of these 10 ASEAN leaders in Delhi on Republic Day showcases India's Act East policy. Bureau Report, WION.
Hello again, you're watching Gravitas. The United Nations Security Council team arrived in Pakistan on Wednesday. It's no ordinary team though. It's the world body's Sanctions Committee that's in Islamabad to monitor measures taken by the government against UN-designated terror outfits. Outfits like the Jamaat-ud-Dawa of Hafiz Saeed. Pakistan says the visit is routine. It's anything but. Here's why.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahid Abbasi has said his government will act against charities run by Hafiz Saeed.
Yeah, the government will take over the charities which are sanctioned and not allowed to operate. As I said, it's a continuing process. And like I said, the implementation speed may have its ups and downs, but we remain committed to the spirit of the sanctions.
Saeed is the founder of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, or the LET, a UN-designated terror organization. His quote-unquote charitable organizations, the Falah-e-Insaniyat Foundation and the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, are fronts for the Lashkar-e-Taiba. He is also the mastermind of the 2008 Mumbai terror attack, in which at least 166 people were killed. On Wednesday, two things happened. One, a UN Security Council delegation arrived in Islamabad to check whether Pakistan is complying with sanctions on designated terrorists and terror outfits. The second, Saeed, who is one of those designated terrorists, moved the Lahore High Court to stop the government's plans to seize control of his so-called charities.
हमने हाई कोर्ट के अंदर रिट कर दी है जो खबरें इस वक्त चल रही हैं हुकूमती इक़दामात जो होने जा रहे हैं या वफद यूनाइटेड नेशन का जो आ रहा है.
Of late, Pakistan has increasingly felt the heat for its leniency towards terrorism proliferating on its territory. The United States and India have been pointed in their criticism. The UN delegation is expected to pressure Pakistan to act against Saeed, who, despite being designated a terrorist by both the US and UN, operates with freedom in Pakistan. He has been placed under house arrest intermittently since 2008, most recently in 2017. However, a court cleared him of all charges due to the state's failure to provide credible evidence against him. Pakistan has termed the UN team's visit as routine. However, for most observers, the visit isn't that innocuous. In fact, many view the visit as significant, coming at a time when Pakistan is increasingly under pressure for not taking action against terror groups operating on its soil. Bureau Report, WION.
So who is in this team? What are its powers? What can it do? Will its decision on Pakistan be binding? This is what we know so far. At the last count, the United Nations Security Council had sanctioned 27 organizations and 38 individuals based in Pakistan for terror-related activities. Apart from the Lashkar-e-Toiba and its chief Hafiz Saeed, they include the Tehreek-e-Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, the Lashkar-e-Jangvi and others. The UNSC team, which is now in Pakistan, is expected to seek many answers from the Pakistan government. Notably, how is it implementing the sanctions against these organizations and individuals? The team wants to know whether Pakistan has frozen the finances and other assets of these terror groups. We know it hasn't. Also, has Pakistan been able to stop these groups from carrying out terror activities? Again, the answer is no, but the team is going to do its investigation. Some of the questions expected to be about Hafiz Saeed, who masterminded the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, killing 160 people. Pakistan, of course, is expected to defend him. The government says it is in the process of taking over his charities. But Saeed has already, remember, gone to court, got an injunction against the impending arrest. Now, as armies go, the Indian and Chinese armies are considered large, professional in outlook and well-equipped. Perhaps the People's Liberation Army of China, or the PLA, as it's popularly called, fares better in that regard, given a much bigger defense budget of $151 billion last year. Comparatively, India's was a minuscule $50 billion budget. Those figures and capabilities aside, the Indian Army is a national army. It exists only to defend the nation. The PLA, on the other hand, is the creature of the Chinese Communist Party. It reflects the view of Chairman Mao, founding father of the People's Republic of China, that power flows from the barrel of a gun and the party must always control that gun. Which is why it's hard to expect the PLA to stage a coup. And also why what I'm going to say next might sound preposterous, but it did happen. The first reports came last October. They were partially confirmed when a senior official, Liu Xiu, named and shamed senior political and military leaders. Inconceivable in the Chinese context, but it happened. He said this: Bo Xilai, Zhu Yongkang, Ling Zhihua, General Shu Kai-hu, General Guo Boxiong and Sun Zengkai had high positions and great power in the party, but they were hugely corrupt and they plotted to usurp the party's leadership and seize state power. The story now moves to January 9 this year, just a few days back, when, according to the respected Nikkei Asian Review, there was an announcement that General Fang Fenghui, former chief of Joint Staff and member of the Central Military Commission, was being investigated for corruption. Fang disappeared from public view last August. He oversaw planning, military operations and intelligence. Also missing was Fang's colleague, General Zhang Yang. Mysteriously, Zhang Yang hanged himself last November while under house arrest. So were they corrupt or was it a coup attempt is the million-dollar question. The Nikkei report suggests it was both these things. Under former President Hu Jintao, this is what was happening in China. Promotions were handed out in exchange for bribes. Payment for promotion to Major General ranged from anywhere between $778,000 to $1.5 million. If you wanted a promotion to the post of, say, a Lieutenant General, you would have had to pay a bribe of $4.5 million. General Fang and General Zhang may have paid $4.7 million for their promotions. Two high-ranking military officers made lots of money reportedly in this process, General Guo Boxiong and General Shu Kai-hao. Now, General Guo is in jail and Shu died in 2015. So when President Xi Jinping earlier this year, or last year rather, launched his crackdown on corruption, he upset a well-oiled machine and a lot of powerful people in China. General Fang Chonglong was one of them. He was commander of the PLA forces and soldiers swore allegiance to him. Not surprisingly then, the greatest resistance to President Xi's efforts to clean and reform the military came from here. There was opposition to the president's plans to cut the size of the PLA. There was opposition to his move to rejig military regions, to reduce the number of military members in the Central Military Commission. More serious, President Xi's new military chief, General Li, was being ignored by the PLA hierarchy. His orders were being diluted or flouted. Senior commanders spoke directly to General Fang. The chain of command in the PLA had completely broken down, and this was when the president was apprehensive of a conflict breaking out on the Korean Peninsula in March. This was March last year. So what happens now? Xi's jailing of top political leaders and generals has upset a cozy practice that ensured a comfortable life for political losers in China. China watchers expect more vicious political infighting in that country, in the Communist Party. Xi has created fierce opposition to his rule. He may be seen as China's most powerful leader since Mao, but his power rests on shaky foundations. Talk of seemingly powerful presidents facing opposition. When the world's most controversial president goes to play, can protesters be kept at bay? President Donald Trump is in Switzerland to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, the playground of Europe's fashionable ski and spa set. Davos is in the throes of the tightest security in the world. Demonstrators have been kept away from the venue, where the visiting president will sleep, talk, and undoubtedly make more politically incorrect wisecracks. But the young and the restless never give up. Senior foreign editor Padma Rao takes a look at what goes down in the Alpine Republic.
Switzerland has been awash with protests for days. Be it in Geneva, in the capital Bern, in Lausanne or in Freiburg, hundreds and thousands of angry people carrying placards and megaphones are telling the American president in Switzerland's 3 official languages, German, French and Italian, but also in alien tongues, that he is not welcome. The crowd is mostly young, and much like American burgers and blue jeans, slamming the US president too has become a global fashion statement. Of course, demonstrators can always be appreciated as long as they have clear goals. But what are they? Is it Trump's shithole remark? Or is it Turkey's ongoing offensive on Syrian Kurds in Afrin? One poster in German speaks of resistance in Afrin. Another reads, "Smash WEF, the World Economic Forum." The chanting, though, is in Kurdish against, quote-unquote, Erdogan, the dictator. But what does the American president have to do with Turkey's battle against the Kurds in Afrin, or even its president, Erdogan?
I think we see anti-Trump protests everywhere. It is actually one of the reasons why Trump didn't go to England. He fears, and the British government fears, heavy protests against his venue. I think this is our turn to play our part. Now that he's coming here in Switzerland, this is our turn to be vigilant and to say that the model he is defending, well, it's not ours.
The world saw similar scenes at the G20 summit in Hamburg last year. But Switzerland's police are doing everything they can to ensure that these protesters, decrying whatever is their biggest bugbear, do so without vandalizing property or hurting anyone. Many slogans being raised by them have nothing to do with the World Economic Forum. But for the young and the passionate, any occasion is good enough to get out on the streets and turn a gap fest of the rich and the powerful into a street festival, a carnival. President Trump will come and go, and when the snow has melted in the Alps, the sun will glitter on those beautiful mountains and lives will go on. Padma Rao, WION.
Now, Chinese scientists have cloned monkeys for the first time using the same technique that produced Dolly the sheep a couple of decades ago. But is this the first step to human cloning, and why is it a big deal? Shivangi Shukla reports.
Meet Zhong Zhong and Hua Hua. They look like your typical cute baby monkeys. But they aren't ordinary ones. They are the first primates cloned using the same method that made Dolly the sheep. Scientists say populations of monkeys that are genetically identical will be useful for research into human diseases. They think it can prove to be a model for studying diseases with a genetic basis. That includes some cancers and metabolic and immune disorders. So it's been called an important breakthrough, considering their close relations to humans. Dolly the sheep was the first mammal to be cloned with DNA taken from an adult. It was announced in 1997. About 24 mammal species have been cloned through this process, but until now they had been unable to make babies this way in primates. The primate category includes monkeys, apes, and us human beings. The first successful attempt at cloning dates way back to 1996. Dolly the sheep was born using a technique called somatic cell nuclear transfer. In 2001, the first attempt at using cloning to boost an endangered species failed after a cloned bison called Noah died soon after birth. The same year saw the first cloned cat called CC, that's short for carbon copy. In 2005, Snuppy, the world's first cloned dog, was unveiled. And in 2016, the Institute of Neuroscience in Shanghai showed the world's first genetically engineered monkey with a version of Parkinson's disease. The creators of the clones from the Chinese Academy of Sciences and Institute of Neuroscience have said the monkeys have been cloned for medical purposes. They say their focus is to use the cloned monkeys to create better therapies for diseases like Alzheimer and Parkinson's. This has led to PETA strongly condemning the cloning and calling it a horror show.
I should point out that people may argue that it's not ethical to use monkey. But I think monkey has been used in tens of thousands these days by drug company to test Parkinson's disease.
But now that the genie is out of the bottle, the question is not whether humans can be cloned, but rather how soon will the first human clone be born. Bureau Report, WION.